Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year to everyone. This is January the 8th, 2018. We are in the boardroom, and it is the organizational meeting for the Board of Education. I will call the roll. Mrs. Oden.
Here.
Ms. Van Twyver's here. Mr. Mosier.
I'm here.
Mrs. Hohensie.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mr. Garino.
Here.
Ms. Raymond.
Here.
Ms. Timmons.
Here.
We do have a quorum, and the purpose of this meeting is to elect a president and a clerk that will serve the Board of Education as officers for the 2018 calendar year. I'd like to welcome our 3 new members. Glad to have you with us, and look forward to your thoughtful considerations on this board. The first thing we're going to do is open nominations for president. Do we have a nomination for president? Ms. Timmons?
Yes, I nominate Ms. Oldham for president.
Okay.
I second it.
There's no need for seconds, but that's okay. Are there any other nominations for president? Oops, sorry, Ms. Hohensie.
I would like to nominate Howard Kaufman.
Kaufman. Are there any other nominations for the office of president? If not, the chair declares nominations closed for the position of president and will now take the vote. Mrs. Oden.
We have a statement.
I'm sorry, would you, thank you for reminding me, Mr. Kaufman. Would you like to have a few words before we take the vote?
I would just like to say, if I am elected president, I would like to see meetings where members are respectful of each other and that we have as much transparency on this board as possible. And I truly believe that our job is to do the best we can with the resources we have for our students and our community. Thank you.
Yep, Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Hohensie, for your nomination. This year, voters selected 3 new board members and voted out the 2 most recent board presidents. Another former board president has since resigned. In the past 2 years, the voters have elected 5, soon to be 6, new board members. I believe that the board has struggled due to a lack of vision, leadership, civility, and teamwork. All of these challenges can be overcome with strong, effective, and experienced leadership and a little bit of training. Teams collaborate when their members feel welcomed, are listened to, respected, and valued for their contributions. Fellow board members, please accept these 4 promises I make to you tonight. All members will be respected and valued for their service, contributions, and opinions. Board member comments will not be interrupted. Agenda requests shall be honored and fulfilled. Board member administrative requests shall be tracked along with ongoing status reported at board meetings. As a professional project manager, I am experienced and trained to lead teams and projects. I know how teams form, communicate, operate, and govern themselves. I personally value your skills and welcome your contributions to the governance of the school district. I want to hear what you have to say, especially our new members who are all parents or grandparents of children in the school system. The board clearly needs to hear your parental voice. As board president, I see my primary role as one of organizing and conducting Board of Ed meetings. It's critically important that the BOE meetings promote the sharing and discussion of the information we need to make informed decisions. As board president, I would include team building as a regular topic on our BOE agendas. These activities will educate the board and build the trust and necessary teamwork for us to effectively work together. With soon to be 4 new members, I fully believe that our board can govern itself and the school district without the expensive and unnecessary involvement of external consultants. Contrary to Mrs. Oden and Dr. Mosley, I am not willing to declare our board incapable or incompetent on our first day. You may not realize it, but that discussion will take place in our next meeting. Our board needs the opportunity to work together before we even consider bringing in outsiders. In 6 months, if we need help, I will be the first one to ask for it. For us to bring in outside consultants, I believe the board would be abdicating its responsibility as an elected body. This we cannot do. Let me just review with you a few of my accomplishments on the board over the last 2 years. I served as board clerk starting on my first day. I've been a board representative on 2 NTU negotiation teams. I have authored of more than 20 plus policy proposals that promote transparency, accountability, and common sense in all areas of district operations. I've been an active participant in all board committees, negotiations, interviews, deliberations, and budget decisions. I've been a committee member on 3 of 4 standing committees. Permit me to share my vision of the district and our students. Perhaps we have more in common than you might think. Our graduating young men and women are capable citizens of the United States. They are well versed in our history and ready for their next endeavor, be it college, vocational training, the general workforce, or military service. Our young people love to learn and possess strong core academic skills. Many have internship experience and/or an industry certification. They are ready to work. I see our young people ready to lead the next generation. From a skills perspective, they are strong in reading, writing, and mathematics. They leave us with workplace-ready computer skills such as spreadsheets, desktop publishing, engineering design, and software programming. Our graduates are ready with the soft skills companies require. They know what to expect in the workforce, and they are ready for their first interview with a well-written resume in hand. I believe our district has everything it needs to accomplish a vision like this. We've got a solid infrastructure, a team of dedicated and talented teachers and staff, and most of all, we have community support. With strong board leadership, combined with the dedicated administrative leadership in the person of Dr. Mosley, we can graduate students prepared for life after high school. Let's work together to make the Nashua School District the best place to learn and work in southern New Hampshire. My final comment is an email that I received from one of our teachers. And it's largely because of this email that, coming before you tonight asking to be your president. After reading the Telegraph article this morning, it is so important that you become president of the board. Anyone other than you represents the status quo that structured the mess we are in with student achievement, budget cuts, inexperienced administrators, and poor decision-making. They're all board-level decisions. The board needs a more active role in the decision-making process. Leaving important long-term decisions to the administration has now been proven by the data to be disastrous to the district. Of course, any veteran teacher could tell you, without the support of the data, that this was going to happen. At the core of this is the grading system, lack of attendance policy, and social promotion. All of these areas were supported by past board members and have now proven to be wrong. The board cannot step aside and take administration's recommendations without doing the proper research and, of course, asking the hard questions. Please continue in your quest for president because the district needs strong, informed leadership, which you can provide. Board members, thank you for your consideration and your vote.
Okay, I guess we're ready to vote now?
No? Point of order? Can we,
Yes.
as board members, say things too? We did previously in other organizational meetings.
Go right ahead, Mrs. Hoyensee.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Given the union's unique role in the recent election, I think it's appropriate that we consider labor issues. Mr. Kaufman has a consistent record voting in support of labor. He and I moved to reopen negotiations with the custodial union after the previous board voted to privatize. We opposed funding a court appeal that sought privatization as a bargaining tool, and we moved to restore 6 custodians to last year's budget. Mrs. Oden did not. She supported privatization, she supported the RFP process to find a custodial firm, and she supported the elimination of the 9 custodians from the budget. Under pressure, she eventually supported reopening negotiations, but at the same time, she voted for a court appeal to make sure privatization was still a viable option. Mr. Kaufman and I refused to use the custodial union as scapegoats during a tight budget year. It is not fair that the custodians to blame them for having so-called above-market wages. If truth be told, this board is responsible for every single wage salary increase. This board agreed to those wage increases. It's ridiculous to blame labor for accepting those offers. There is a joint responsibility for every contractual agreement that is signed. Mrs. Oden voted for raises and then essentially blamed the custodians for accepting those same raises, and I think that's nuts. Another issue, back in November, Mr. Kaufman and I voted for authorizing against the authorization of the administration to hire full-time substitutes with health care benefits without first posting those job openings. Posting allows everyone an equal opportunity. Otherwise, the administration can just appoint their favorites. This labor practice is prohibited under most union contracts because it doesn't provide a level playing field. It is not fair. It is not good practice. Mr. Kaufman opposed this practice. Mrs. Oden did not. If this board doesn't treat workers fairly, even when we are not required to do so, Nashua will earn a bad reputation. The result will be the opposition of labor or the formation of additional unions, like we saw last year with the non-affiliated staff. When workers feel disrespected, they join together in opposition one way or another. It's only natural. I believe every board member has a duty to ensure fair hiring practices. Our board president should share this belief, and not just for favored unions, but all workers. It's critical for the district to move forward doing this in a positive way. Earlier this year, board members observed candidate interviews for the position of director and above. These are the district's leadership positions. Principals, for example, are responsible for overseeing the workers in their buildings. This includes teachers, paras, secretaries, custodians, and food service workers. It's absolutely essential that we hire the best, most qualified individuals to leave our district, as it affects everyone. During those recent interviews, a few board members, including Mr. Kaufman and myself, noticed irregularities and inappropriate hiring practices. We spoke out strongly in opposition to what was happening. I'm working on a policy to recognize every member's right to observe the hiring process for these top leadership positions. Mr. Kaufman supports transparency of this process. Mrs. Oden does not. The board was told that staff felt intimidated and couldn't speak candidly in front of the board members. Shutting board members out of these interviews won't ensure a fair hiring process, nor will it improve relationships between staff and the board. But let's not forget, if the board fails to ensure a fair labor process, the district can be liable. In fact, an attorney recently contacted me with questions concerning our district's hiring practices. I referred his inquiry to our attorney. A lawsuit against the district could follow. You'd think the board would become more diligent in ensuring fair hiring practices? Mrs. Oden wants the board members to trust the administration and stay out of these interviews. In my opinion, trust is earned. It should never be given lightly. That's irresponsible. In light of the problems which surface, more oversight is needed, at least until these problems are resolved. It's the board's duty to do this. It is not to say that I don't support the administration. I do. However, I believe in balance. Board members were not elected to rubber stamp proposals from any administration. We are here to provide guidance, set boundaries, and ensure transparency and fairness across the district. We need a board president who has demonstrated leadership and recognizes our duty to trust but verify. I don't want a board president who makes promises to protect fair labor practices, which she herself has not supported. I'm supporting Mr. Kaufman because he already encourages fair labor practices and he will allow every member on this board to participate in labor negotiations to the full extent he or she is able to participate. I believe Mr. Kaufman will respect the voice of each and every member of this board. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor of their candidate? If not, we're ready for the vote. Mrs. Oden and Mr. Kaufman have been nominated for president of the board. Mrs. Oden, how do you vote?
Mrs. Oden.
Ms. Van Twyver votes for Mrs. Oden. Mr. Mosier?
I vote for Mrs. Oden.
Ms. Hohensee?
Mr. Kaufman?
Mr. Kaufman?
I vote for Mr. Kaufman.
Mr. Garino?
Ms. Oden.
Ms. Raymond?
Mrs. Oden.
Ms. Timmons?
Mrs. Oden.
Oops, vacant is the last spot. Can't vote. So congratulations, Mrs. Oden has been elected president of this board for the
Could you please announce the
2018.
vote?
It is 6 for Mrs. Oden and 2 for Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The chair would entertain nominations for clerk. Are there any nominations for clerk of the Board of Education?
I would like to nominate Mr. Guarino.
Okay. Mr. Guarino. Are there any other nominations for clerk? Ms. Timmons?
Well, I was going to second Mr. Guarino, but
There's no requirement for a
Okay,
second,
thank you.
but that's quite all right.
Okay.
Shows your support. Are there any other? Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I'd like to put in nomination Mrs. Hohensee.
Mrs. Hohensee has been nominated for clerk of the board. Are there any other nominations? Mr. Guarino, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. If you elect me as clerk, I will do my best to bring civility, cooperation to the board, most of all brevity, respect and trust for our superintendent and his team, as well as our professional educators. Thank you.
Yep. Ms. Hohensee?
Thank you. I would like to be clerk. I think I've got 2 years' experience on many of our committees. I have done the job as a clerk in those committee positions. I was a clerk in the negotiating committee last year for the NTU. I think this will be the next step in working on the board, and I would like to run for clerk.
Thank you very much. Nominations are closed. We are voting for Mr. Guarino or Ms. Hohensee for clerk. Mrs. Oden, how do you vote?
Mr. Guarino.
Ms. Van Twyver votes for Guarino. Mr. Mosier?
I also vote for Mr. Guarino.
Ms. Hohensee?
Ms. Hohensee.
Mr. Kaufman?
Mrs. Hohensee.
Mr. Guarino?
Mr. Garino.
Ms. Raymond?
Mr. Guarino.
And Ms. Timmons?
Mr. Guarino.
There are 6 votes for Mr. Guarino and 2 for Hohensee. Congratulations, we now have a new clerk. And now, the next order of business is to draw our voting number, where we take the roll and the order in which we take the votes. And do we have the magic box with the numbers in it that we've used for years and years and years? There's a lot of good luck in the box. Dr. Mosier knows. You want me to bring it to you? No, sir. You may have the honor of going around and asking them to. But not Mr. Donovan and not Ms. O'Gara. She can't. Start with Ms. Timmons. Thank you, sir. Oh. No. And the last one is for Mr. Mosier. Can you give me the number?
There should be 2 left, right? Nope.
Nope.
Just remember what I said.
We only have 8 members right now. Got it. Okey-doke. We have decided your luck, Mr. Mosier. I can't
Yeah,
get
how
it
lucky am I?
Well, I'm trying to get it open. Oh, Mr. Mosier, you're a lucky person. You're number 1.
Oh, boy.
Not the best spot. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay, and who has number 2?
I do, Mrs. Oden.
Mrs. Oden.
Thank you.
3?
Number 3? Are you Mr.
Yeah, Kaufman.
Kaufman? Number 4?
Mrs. Raymond.
Mrs. Raymond. Number 5?
Ms. Timmons.
That's the best spot, halfway in between. Number 6?
Mrs. Hohensee?
Hohensee, Ms. Hohensee. Yep, number 7 is Elizabeth Van Twyver. And number 8,
That would be me.
Garino?
Yes.
Oops, thank you, sorry. Yes, no, they do not have to sit in that order. They sit anywhere they like. Okay. We have a new president, we have a new clerk, and we have our calling
Point of
voting
order.
numbers.
May I ask a question?
You may ask a question.
Thank you. So one of the things I noticed at the Board of Aldermen the other day when we had to sit through their meeting, which we didn't have to the last time, was they sat in the order of their vote, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, very
We've
interesting.
we've never discussed that here.
And it's not purpose of this meeting to discuss that. You may take that up, as I told you the last time, during the regular board meeting.
I'm sorry, Ms. Van Twyver, I don't recall bringing this up previously, but, okay.
Well-
Certainly not not tonight or in an email or any other discussion, so I don't know what
Well,
you're
the last
upset
time
about.
we elected a new board president.
Thank you.
okay?
Perhaps your memory's better than mine.
I certainly remember that. Okay. Seeing that there is no further business to come before this organizational meeting, if there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 7:30.
I'd like to call the January 8th, 2018 Nashua Board of Education meeting to order. It is now 7:34, and we are at the Nashua High North Lecture Room. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Mosher,
I'm here.
Ms. Oden,
Here.
Mr. Kaufman,
Here?
Ms. Raymond,
Here.
Ms. Timmons, Ms. Hohensee,
Here.
Ms. Van Twyver.
Here.
Mr. Garino is here.
We have a quorum.
Dottie,
Um,
flip this page here.
Do we have the prayer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Other attendees, I apologize. Dr. Mosley,
Here.
Dr. McKinney, Ms. Fitzpatrick, Mr. Donovan, Ms. Sweeney, Mr. Gillis.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Put the time in here.
Okay.
Pledge of allegiance?
Have a
No,
ple-
we haven't done that yet.
We haven't done
Okay,
pledge of
but it's on the
Okay.
agenda, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Where is the prayer? Because clerk reads the prayer. Does he have the prayer?
Point of order, Madam Chairman. As part of the organizational meeting, it's on the agenda that we were going to talk about committee assignments. That did not occur.
Can we address it at?
I'm
at
just
the-
pointing
the
out we
board
haven't
meeting?
done it, but we need to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam President, Generally, what happens is that the committee reference sheet that everybody fills out is sent to you, and then you go and make your decision on how you're going to organize. So if everybody has their sheet, you can collect them now. Take a little bit out of order.
Okay. Before anybody gives me their sheet, I would like to ask, especially the new members, if they have any educational or work experience in their past that would make them think they would be a valuable member to a particular committee. Could you please write that down for me so I can use that when formulating the committees? And please know to all of you, the committees will not be set in stone. We will have a special election to fill the 9th seat, and there could be we need some flexibility so that when that person comes on board, we can assign that person to a committee or two. So please be flexible and understanding that these assignments will not be set in stone. Ms. O'Hensi?
Thank you. I was just wondering, I realize we have another member coming. Perhaps certain people could resign their position and offer it to the new person, but are we going to take all the elections for clerk and president all over because they weren't there for that too? I mean, what is permanent, what isn't permanent? You can't offer like committee spots for a year and then just say they're going to change. I would think that we would say that, okay, some people who have extra spots they don't want on a committee would defer to the new member. But I don't know how you would remove something after you give it to them. I don't know how that works, but it doesn't seem appropriate.
Mr. Guarino?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the procedures that, I was looking over the procedures that would warrant that. Basically, it says that we have a president and a clerk for the next year, and then the following year we do the same. Mm-hmm. So I would think that they would have to live with what's here, if I'm correct, unless there's something else that is contrary to that. But as I was going over the procedures, I do remember that it basically says at the beginning of the year you choose president, clerk. It doesn't say anything about if anybody comes to the board.
Mr. Kaufman?
To Mr. Guarino's point, I agree. The position of president and clerk is for a year, as are the committee assignments that are essentially nominated, set by the president, and voted by the board. So it is a yearly assignment. So I think we welcome we welcome our next person, but I don't. If people ask for their preferences now, they should be accommodated. They're here. We have business to run. To have this hanging over your head that, oh, well, you're going to be on this committee and you're going to put time into it for 2 or 3 months, and then to have that removed from you, I think would be an unfair thing to do.
I'll butt in at this point and say that, Howard, don't be so overly verbose. That we have elected by consensus a president and clerk, and the new member comes on. Whatever positions on committees are open, they are entitled to pick out from those that are open as either alternatives or as some of the ad hoc committees. And that would suffice for them for the year. Then after the year is up, they have the ability then to re-vote for new committees and new president and clerk.
Can we?
Madam Chair?
Dr. Mosley?
And I don't want to speak for you, Madam Chair, but I believe what we're referring to is that there's a special election coming up. And with that special election, that individual who is eventually, he or she who is eventually elected, is going to have an opportunity to sit on one of these subcommittees that we have for the school committee, for the school board. So therefore, when there is a sense of fluidity, so to speak, that person might join a subcommittee, which is perfectly acceptable. We just have to wait for that process to be completed.
Thank you, Dr. Mosley.
Madam President, could we continue with the,
I would just say, I think Mr. Kaufman and Ms. O'Hensey bring up a valid point, and hopefully when that person comes, there might be somebody on a committee that's willing to give up that seat, because we will have to have a full complement on each committee. So hopefully that will take care of the problem. I think people will probably be on more committees. More people will be on more committees than we have in the past. So hopefully we can cross that bridge and we can come to a consensus on that. So, and with that, could we please have Mr. Did we announce the two students? Just a minute. Okay. We have our two new student representatives to the Board of Education. I want to welcome Patrick Gill and, let me see, Haley, oh, your last name, Sweeney, Haley Sweeney, and I knew that there. So thank you so much, and thank you for stepping up. It's always a pleasure to hear what the student perspective is on some of the different issues we deal with. So I thank both of you, and I encourage you to speak up on behalf of the students. And if there's ever a night and the meeting's running late and you have an assignment to do or a test the next day, please feel free to get up and leave. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if we could have Mr. Garino read the prayer, and could we have, I think I'll go around the circle, Dr. McKinney lead us in the pledge.
Can we all stand, please? Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty of managing the educational institutions of our beloved city. In our common endeavors, may we find a spirit of unity and understanding which will enable us to face our multiple problems with an objective mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will be for the betterment and greater happiness of all of our fellow citizens. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, I want to thank the members who voted for me for having the confidence and the trust in me to lead this board for the next year. As president, I will strive to chair meetings where members are respectful and to ensure there is as much transparency as possible. Also, please understand, well, this was about the assignments, and I think we addressed this. I just want you to know that Attorney Bolton will be giving us some dates for when he's available to have a board workshop on Robert's Rules and the Right to Know law. And also, I will be asking Attorney Clausen for dates that he would be available to update all new members on the status of all negotiations that are ongoing in the district. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Okay, I think the first presentation we have is from the Nashua Prevention Coalition, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey 2017. And I know one of the individuals who was a teacher in the district, Janet Baluk.
Madam President, before we start, can I just ask for a moment of silence for Judy Berman, who recently passed away? She was a former board. I just muted myself. I just thought a moment of silence before we get started, because she was a well-respected member of our board.
Thank you. I didn't see that, but could we quickly have a moment of silence for Judy Berman, who served on this board? Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you, Ms. Sohensi, for bringing that to our attention. Thank you. And Ms. Faluk, do you want to introduce the people who are here with you and start your presentation for us? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. As Ms. Oden said, my name is Janet Valuk, and I'm the director of the Nashua Prevention Coalition. And just to update some of the new members on the board, I'm also a retired health education teacher. I was with the district for 21 years and have moved on to still work in prevention, which is my passion. I have with me our new coordinator, Cameo Chassis, and she will be doing the bulk of the presentation. But I just wanted to update because there are a lot of new members here. And first of all, again, thank you for having us, and congratulations to the new members that are here, both student and adult members. I handed out just a little promo sheet about the coalition and what we do. The coalition was formed in 2009 with the mission to increase awareness in drug and alcohol misuse and try to keep as many kiddos as possible away from starting. And certainly the school district is a major component of that. We've had lots of programs and projects. Once we were funded in 2013 by a drug-free community grant, we've really gotten involved with the community and trying to promote our mission. We did receive, starting in 2013, a $125,000 a year grant. We are finishing up our last year of that 5-year grant, and we'll be reapplying for 5 more years. So sustainability is a major part of our program. We're represented by 12 community sectors, and I'm not going to read through them because you can see them here on your paper. And we are always welcoming new members to our coalition. We're very happy that Ms. Fitzpatrick attended one of our coalition meetings a couple months ago, and we encourage anybody who's interested to join us. So back in 2014, I don't know if you've all heard of the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, or YRBS as it's referred to, has been given traditionally every 2 years to high school students. It's administered by the schools, and then results are reported out by the state. We wanted to introduce a middle school survey because a lot of times these issues we see starting earlier and earlier, and we wanted to have some statistics so that we could design our programs appropriately. So in 2014, we came before the Board of Ed asking permission to give the YRBS survey to 7th and 8th graders. And a lot of the questions were evaluated by the Board of Ed, and we finally came upon the set of questions that we wanted to ask. So the first middle school YRBS was given in the spring of 2015. We found those results to be educational. We presented them to the Board of Ed, but having nothing to base them on prior was difficult. So in 2017, again, we received permission to run the survey again. It was given in the spring of last year. We received the results, and that is what you have before you now. We have not released these to the schools yet. So none of the middle school principals or guidance counselors have seen these, and I will tell you they are waiting to see them. But we felt that because we came to you and asked permission to give it in the first place, that we owed you the respect of seeing them before they get released to the public. So with that being said, I'd like to turn it over now to Cameo Chassis, and she will go through most of what you have in front of you. We have up on the screen as well. And she's not going to go over everything in the survey, but some of the things that we feel are important for you to know.
Hi, everyone. So just to give you a snapshot of the students that took the survey in 2017, it was given to, 1,350 students took it, which reflects 85.9% of the enrollment. And again, it was to 7th and 8th grade students at Elm Street, Pennachuck, and Fairgrounds. There was 661 males and 673 females that took it. And so I went and over all of the information with our consultant, Betsy Hood, who's the executive director of the Youth Council, and we found some overall trends in the data. The good news is we're moving in really positive directions. A lot of the numbers that you'll see on the handout that we gave are really great numbers, moving in a great direction. So the numbers that we want to go up are going up, and the numbers that we want to go down are going down. Something else that we noticed is that there's some gaps between 7th and 8th grade. So for example, 8th grade usage is higher than 7th grade usage. And the good news is that those gaps have become smaller since 2015. And then another thing we noticed was that mental health is still a huge concern, especially in females. A majority of the females reported having signs of depression. And finally, one of the big trends we noticed was that parents and peers play a huge role in students making decisions to do or participate in risky behaviors. So I wanna, if you look at the first page of the handout, that kind of covers some of the successes that we found. So if you look here, the blue represents 2015, and the red represents 2017. This is 30-day use. The numbers are cut in half since 2015. So right off the bat, that's amazing. Any questions on that? Yes.
These are self-reported by the students?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And so just another breakdown, this is the same thing, but it's the actual numbers. So from 2015 to 2017, that shows that the numbers have cut in half. Yeah, or more. Quite a few of them, except prescription drugs, but as you notice, it's a very small percentage of students that are using prescription drugs without a doctor's prescription. And another thing is that 8th grade use specifically, like I had mentioned before, 8th grade use was much higher than 7th grade use, but again, this is cut in half as well since 2015. So the other thing is that since 2015, more students think that their peers think it is wrong for them to use substances. If you note there that, again, the prescription drugs is the same, but that's not a huge red flag for us because prescription use is so low in 7th and 8th graders. But otherwise, all the numbers have gone up. The next thing I want to mention is areas of focus. So moving forward, a big part of looking at this data is what do we need to do moving forward? How can we better educate our students? How can we get teachers and parents and peers more involved? And so again, mental health, if you look at the numbers here, again, they've gone down, which is awesome, but the numbers are still definitely concerning, especially for the number of 7th and 8th graders who have tried to kill themselves. That number is far too high, so we definitely need to consider having more resources and supports in the school. And this reflects, as I had mentioned before, that the females are reporting much more signs of depression. They're almost twice as much as the males. So, any questions so far? Yes.
So I'm curious, especially in these kinds of things.
Yeah.
So how do parents fit into this? I mean, you're doing a survey of students as self-reported, as Ms.
Yeah.
Raymond said. So I'm just concerned that if somehow we learn that a student has thought about hurting themselves, this is coming up with a psychologist policy, so it's kind of piggybacking in a timely way. So I'm just curious about parental notification in terms of how does, I mean, you're providing resources. Do you have counselors? Do we send our students to you or some of your providers, or?
So we don't provide resources. We are the resource in providing the statistics, and then we help with the schools with different programs that we have. So in regards to drugs, for example, we provide stipends to 5 schools for care club or SAD advisors. So they either take it in the form of a stipend or they take it as a monetary amount into their school club fund, and then they can use it to buy supplies and things like that. So that happens throughout the year, and they focus on positive reinforcement, leadership skills, being involved. All of these things promote a drug-free life. We've learned that, back in my day of the Nancy Reagan just say no doesn't work anymore. So we're not focusing on that as much as we are on leadership skills, self-esteem building, anti-bullying issues and things like that. There are services available within the school. The Youth Council funds the Students Assistant Program counselors that are now in the 2 high schools and the 3 middle schools, which is an increase of, well, we had 1 last year and now there's 5. So they have, those services are available, but we don't provide the services. We provide resources and information and support things in the school. Yes?
You mentioned that there was money that was given to the schools for their supplies. Could you talk a little bit about that? What kind of supplies, and is there an audit of how that money is spent?
So we went through central office to make sure we were legal. The stipend is paid directly to some of the schools did not want to designate one person to be in charge and to take the stipend. So a few of the schools, we pay a stipend to the person who has become the advisor for the SAD or care clubs. 2 of the schools, I think, it's a group effort, and they didn't want to get the money, so we broke it up into 2 $500 checks that got deposited into the school activities fund that they can then use to support their programs that they're running in the schools, to buy materials that they might need, to get T-shirts for the students that are part of the club, to buy food, to have them stay after, because we all know that whenever there's food, kids will come. So it's a challenge sometimes to get students involved in being in that type of a club where they might not necessarily be considered the cool kids. So we do what we can to encourage them to come. I know, and these clubs are functioning at the high schools. They meet during E-block, and in the middle schools they meet generally after school, once every week or once every couple of weeks. And we also have clubs in the Boys and Girls Club, Police Athletic League, and the Y Leadership Program. So, we're limited as to what we can do from the coalition, but we don't actually supply or provide people. We're the only 2 paid people on the coalition staff. So, we feel that with at least providing the stipend, it's an effective way to get the message out.
Piggybacking off of Mr. Kaufman's question a few minutes ago, where he had asked about the number of students who are reporting self-harm and not only suicidal ideation, but also attempts. These surveys are anonymous, so is there any way that staff is able to know which children are suffering, or which, where we can apply some help?
Right. Unfortunately, no, because it is totally anonymous. There's no names. This is the only survey that's allowed to be given in New Hampshire that is an opt-out survey. So in other words, a notice was sent home prior to the survey, and any parents who did not want their children to take the survey, they opted out of it. They sent the form back in and they opted out. They did that for both the middle school and the high school surveys. But there's no way of identifying who answered those questions. But we will be sending these out probably tomorrow to the middle school principals, and then they will in turn send them out to the guidance counselors. And like I said, they are really anxious to get the results so that they can start to design some programs around some of these statistics. Yes, Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you. Your last question really opened my mind to two thoughts. One was, have you done a survey in the high school? Or is there one planned? Because I would imagine the data would be quite different.
We knew that question was coming. The survey has been given. I mean, I retired 5 years ago, and I can remember giving it in my classes. It's been given every 2 years for a lot of years. And it was given in 2017. The results have been sent to the principals, but I don't think it's been distributed. See, we pay for the middle school survey. We don't pay for the high school survey, so we have no control over the results. And those results come from the state. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but they're pretty slow in getting the results out to us. We have gotten some of the results. We have used some of them because, like I said, we're reapplying for the next 5 years of our grant. So statistically, data is what gets you a grant, and we need that data. So we have seen some of it. But as it becomes public information and is released to the Board of Ed and the staff and any citizen, I think we've put the results on the Board of Ed or the school department website. Then we will look at it with a comparison of 2015 to 2017. I can tell you just off the top of my head, we have looked at some of the numbers, and they are also going in the right direction, going down where they should go down and going up where they should go up, but there's still areas of concern. Yes.
I'm just curious, given the opt-in or the opt-out option for parents, how many parents took advantage of that?
Well, we had an 89%.
Okay, so it's that 11% is the opt-out?
Well, or children that are absent.
Okay.
And I think in the past, when I've checked with some of the administrators to see how many have opted out, it was generally between both high schools, you're looking at 2,000 students. It was probably about maybe 20 to 30 students that opted out. So not a high number.
Can I,
Which we depend on that opt-out, because if it were an opt-in, we wouldn't have any of these high numbers of results made available.
There was a
Oh, sorry.
There was a question around the high school and whether there was going to be a survey for the high school. Nashua High School North is slated to participate in the National Youth Tobacco Survey. Mm-hmm. That's coming up soon. So there was a question about the high school participation in such a survey, and I just want to make note that the Nashua High School North is slated to participate in the National Youth Tobacco Survey. So that's coming up this spring. Mr. Kaufman brings up a great point around the opting out. Parents do, and students have the opportunity to opt out on this particular survey. So that answers the high school. Typically, you'll see this run in cycles, so it's likely we'll start with the North this year, and subsequently, maybe 2 years from now, you'll see a survey being directed to the South as well.
And to address some of the questions too, as we are moving forward and applying for a year 6 through 10 grant, we're trying to address, our job goes far beyond substance use. Everything's related. So for signs of depression, why are these kids feeling this way? So addressing the root causes, giving kids ways to get involved, and positive self-esteem, addressing bullying. So we're really trying to incorporate that more as we move forward in applying for the years 6 through 10 grant. Yeah. So just a few more slides. The conversation with parents decreases between 7th and 8th grade. So again, going back to that gap, kids reported that parents or other adults in their family have clear rules and standards. That's gone down in 8th grade from 7th grade. And then parents who talked about the dangers of substance use in the past 12 months, again, that goes down in 8th grade. And another thing we noted and want to address moving forward is less than 50% of parents are having those conversations with their kids. So how can we educate parents? And so we talked about hosting some more information sessions and education sessions moving forward for parents.
Yes.
I don't recall from the information you gave us, but is there any demographic breakdown?
There's a larger demographic breakdown. I just provided the females and males.
Okay.
We can provide more of that information if you'd like.
We can talk about that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I think in the handout, there's demographics right there.
You handed out a sheet with color graphs on it. I don't think it got this far. I don't know if they did. Do you have another one?
I don't know if there's a...
That's it.
That's not it.
This is the same sheet that they gave us in our packet.
Oh, okay. I thought that was the one. No, I think we're fine. Never mind.
Okay. And so this graph illustrates that less students reported their parents feel it is wrong if they drink alcohol or smoke marijuana. And if you look back to the 30-day use, drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana are the two highest 30-day usages. So moving forward, again, how do we educate parents on youth drinking alcohol and smoking marijuana and providing that education piece? Students are definitely influenced by parental disapproval, so students are less likely to use a substance if they feel as though their parents disapprove of it. So the red shows kids who don't think their parents disapprove, that's how much are using, the percentage of use. And then the blue shows use among youth who think parents disapprove. And finally, I just want to briefly mention peer attitudes. There's a big gap between 7th and 8th grade. So as kids hit 8th grade, they believe that their peers feel it is less wrong to use substances. And since 2015, all of these gaps have become smaller. So we're moving in the right direction, like I said. Any other final questions? Overall, we're really pleased to see this much improvement since 2015, and we'll just keep continuing to move forward and working with the schools to create a positive atmosphere for our youth and educate them and their parents and staff. Yeah.
I just have one quick question. I noticed that you have prescription drugs separate, but I don't see opiates listed in any of the questions. Is that covered at the middle school level or the high school level?
It's covered at the high school level.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to say that I learned a lot, and I want to thank you very much. Some of the things kind of opened my eyes, especially the at-risk for young girls. And also the care clubs, I think, is a great idea. Kids that aren't socializing, it's a great way to get them to start socializing and help their mental health. So I just wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. One of the things that we have added is Cameo is working with Stacy Hines and the E-News. And we have a wellness corner that we will be putting stuff in each month to be increased to as many times a month as we want at some point. One of the big issues right now is vaping. And thanks to the administration here at North, we came in and presented to all of the students the dangers of vaping. They're smiling over there because they sat and saw it, right? Which is now, we are meeting with the South administration on Wednesday, and we also put in a workshop for Teacher Workshop Day to educate the teachers as well in regards to e-cigarettes or vaping, whatever the terminology kids are using out there right now. But that's one of the huge problems right now, very big. Yes?
Maybe people at home may not know, or the vaping is also used to, I'll just say, inhale, formally, except in Colorado, marijuana
Right.
or whatever. So it's not necessarily, vaping is not just smoking as what we think about it is. It's also inhaling stuff that'll get the kids high.
Yes.
Put it that way.
It can be used as a device to utilize marijuana. So thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you, Ms. Chassie and Ms. Baluk, and thank you for all you do for our students. You're providing a critical service for them, so thank you very much. Appreciate your work. Okay. Does anybody have anything they need to have removed from the consent agenda? None? Communications outside the consent agenda. Does anybody have any communications outside?
We have to move to accept the consent agenda?
Oh, thank you. Yes. I'm looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda, because we're going to have to take a roll call.
Right.
I'll second that.
Okay.
And now he's, oh dear, first night he's got to do this.
I know.
You got to roll call vote. Roll. It's going to be a long night, Mr. Mosher.
All right, I've been on long nights before.
Yeah.
All right, so we're taking a motion, a vote on the motion to accept the consent agenda. And we're going to start with Mr. Mosher.
It has to be a roll call, right? Because he's on the line.
He's getting ready.
So we're doing a roll call for
The consent agenda.
the consent agenda. Okay. Ms. Oden,
Yes.
wait a minute, let me find my list here. Ms. Van Twyre,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes,
Mr. Garino, yes. Ms. Raymond,
that's not
Yes.
correct order, point of order. That's not the correct
Ms.
order
Timmons.
of voting. Well, if we have a voting order, should we not follow it? We just
Yes,
established
but
it.
would you be kind enough to let the man
I have
do
it.
it?
I apologize, Howard. Mr. Kaufman, I'll do it over.
Okay, thank you, just,
I'm new at this, so.
I-
All right, so.
I've been in your seat,
That's-
trust me, I know.
That's quite all right. So now we're going to do it again. Okay, starting with Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee,
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyre,
Yes.
Mr. Garino, yes. So that was
Motion passes. Do we have any communications from outside the consent agenda? None? Public question, comment period to anything that's on the agenda. Do we have anybody signed up? Is there anybody that would like to speak? Okay. Superintendent's comments.
First of all, I want to say Happy New Year to everyone out there. I appreciate you, all the support that you've given to the schools, and it's nice to have new members here, and I welcome the two representatives from our student group here to our Board of Education. Well, couple things. It's been an interesting transition in a sense to the new year in a way where it's been very snowy and cold. So typically I welcome the snow and the cold, but it's been quite extreme, and I'll get to the snow days in a little bit. Just a couple of things that have happened from the last board meeting. We met with the union representation probably around mid-December, and we were talking about the negotiations, and it was decided that we would hold off until the new board was seated and could be informed about some decisions and the money part of the negotiations before moving forward. So that took place, I believe, in mid-December or close to there, and so that's coming up this month, where we'll be sitting down with the NTU and continuing that discussion. I want to just acknowledge our former board member, Dr. Maritaki. I know that he was a proponent and talked extensively about having a drone course at our CTE programs, getting students excited about potentially having an aviation license or some type of certification. And I'm pleased to announce that at the CTE program at the North, we have applied for a DOE grant to support that endeavor under the umbrella of STEAM, in which we would have students, and this is it's all fluid. We would have students learn how to fly drones, repair drones, get some type of aviation certification. We believe that that will definitely spark some interest and certainly keep all of our kids engaged. And that this course is going to be open up to all of our students. It's a pilot program. We're still waiting to see if we can get a grant. I want to acknowledge Amanda Bastoni, who submitted a $10,000 grant to secure some funding and some resources to facilitate that course. I wanted to also acknowledge that at Amherst Street, the Nashua Education Foundation awarded $4,336 for an endeavor around nonfiction work, and that's actually in your packet. You'll see that in your packet. But I, again, wanted to thank Dr. Scarpati for her work on this. It's been it's never easy to get grants, but it certainly takes time to do that. I also wanted to thank the Nashua Education Foundation for its consideration of the applications, and certainly this is important to our students and to the community, so thank you again. Just a couple of things that are coming up. We have teacher negotiations, which I've already shared. We have secretary negotiations that are coming up. Negotiations coming up, and I see some of our custodians out there. There's some custodian negotiations that are on the docket as well, for both the board and for the administration. Anytime we're in January, we're in budget season, which is where the time we start meeting and talking with department heads. We've been in close communication with the mayor's office and City Hall, and certainly continuing that collaboration. There are some subcommittees, financial committees, that we have to have board members be a part of that. But certainly I just want to share with the public and to the board that we are, full swing in this. We're looking at the numbers, we're looking at programming, we're looking at some things that we will bring to the board's attention when the time is right, but certainly we are officially in budget season and more to come on that. One of the things I thought it would be appropriate for me to do is to just talk a little bit about snow days, and certainly I think that when you're making the decision for snow days, I believe that I speak for the majority, if not all, of the superintendents in Nashua. No, there's only one, sorry, in New Hampshire, and probably nationwide, so to speak. It is never an easy solution. It's never an easy decision. If there is a snow day on Wednesday, most superintendents are preparing and communicating on Monday, if not that Sunday, about what to do. No one wants to be the only district that has school versus, in comparison, you don't want to be the person who makes the wrong call and you endanger students. So we are by far, I would say, the district that mirrors us most is Manchester. And that's not to be disrespectful to any of the districts out there. But we have to understand that we have a very, very diverse population out there. We're not homogeneous. We don't have 1,000 students in our district. We have 11,000 plus students that live in various locations, various transportation arrangements that go far beyond my personal kids' transportation requirements. All I need to do is have my kids walk down the street and the bus is there. It's easy for me, very easy. For some of our kids, walking to school is quite a challenge, and I'll get into that a little bit. When I make a decision for snow days, I'm in communication with our local weatherman. I'm watching Danielle Niles every single morning at 4 o'clock, Channel 4, seeing exactly if there's anything that changes. And I watch, the news for about 2 to 3 days. I'm also in very close communication with Dave Rossio, and I think that's very important to know. Dave Rossio, if you don't know, is part of he's the transportation director in Nashua. And these conversations aren't happening at 7 p.m. when we're nice and warm and things are all great. These are 3:30 a.m. conversations, 4:30 a.m. conversations. And so we, as a group, try to make the best interest for the students in terms of safety. So we had one day a couple of days of snow. So when we have snow days, and the last snow day was on that last Thursday, it was a pretty easy day to call. If not all the districts in New Hampshire and Massachusetts and surrounding areas call the day. That Friday was a snow day as well for the city of Nashua. And we did receive one communication from the board to the board from a concerned parent, and the parent was very nice, but he said, Dr. Mosley, I respectfully disagree with you. I think the students should go to school. And if it's my kids would have been fine to go to school on Friday. Wouldn't have been a problem for me. However, when making the decision, it's not about me, it's about we, it's about this community. And some of our kids have an extensive walk to school. If you live on Lead Street, or in that Lead Street area, I'll use Lead Street. And this is not a criticism of our city employees or Public Works or anything like that. They did a fabulous job with our streets, our sidewalks, they do. But we had close to, in some cases, 14 inches, if not 18 inches of snow. The kids in Lead Street, I just use Lead Street as an example. If we had school, would have been walking in the road to school, walking in the same road that I drive almost every single day. If I'm a parent, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable to have school. I know that might not be comfortable for some parents to accept, but that's the responsibility that I'm okay with. The second thing that I want to say that factors into this is the cold weather. So was it on that Friday? I'm just ballparking 5 degrees. It absolutely was. It was 5 degrees out. But don't forget, when you factor in that the sidewalks weren't applied for all of the walkers on that road, the fact that around 3:30-ish, it was probably -9. Can you imagine being an elementary kid or middle school, or any kid, walking in -12 degrees, or if not, being a young child walking home from school? It's not acceptable. So I'm comfortable making that decision for the best interest of our students. And the final thing that I asked, and I'm going to speak to other thing is, and this is a rhetorical question, out of the snow days that we've had, how many kids were reported being injured or anything like that? How many? Not one. I would rather take that and send me all the emails than have a kid be injured or something fatal. So I'm very comfortable with that. Second thing then, the other things I want to talk a little bit about, we got some feedback on how about blizzard bags? And I'm looking at Mr. Kaufman because I'm aware of the authorship that you shared with some of our parents. But Hoffman, I'm sorry to point. And, I can't get into all the details, but it was very thorough, and I thank you for that. I don't want to put anyone out there, but I don't want to make the assumption that every single household has an internet connection. That's not true. Not every household does, and that's not to be disrespectful or not to acknowledge. But for some of our families, that's not something that's an option. Something we're going to work with very hard to make sure that we can provide, but that's not an option as well. The other thing I want to mention about blizzard bag is it takes some curriculum development, it takes some type of planning, and that's something that the teachers need to take on and really be responsible for. And that needs to be talked about, respected by the teachers in their time, and that needs to be negotiated. So there's another, I'd say, barrier on that. And then the final thing is that all the curriculum, all the FaceTime that students need to have for students, all the FaceTime that needs to happen, the interaction that students need to have towards their teacher or with their teacher during the blizzard bag, if you don't have an internet connection or you don't have that resource, then that's not going to happen. So the blizzard bags are not a bad idea, but under the right circumstances and given the diversity that we have in this district, we're not a small district. We're a district of 11,000 plus students, We also have teachers who sometimes lose power during our snowstorms and other variables that have happened regarding the weather. That's also a challenge. It's a good idea. I'm not shooting that down, but certainly that is a challenge. In the coming weeks, I'll be talking with union representation around some ideas around, right now we have up to 4 snow days. In our schedule, we have built into 5. So if we don't have another snow day, we're pretty much okay. But, again, it's the beginning of January. So I don't want to jinx myself, and it's likely that we're going to go to school. But I would say that, we're at the beginning stages of the winter. But I want to share with this to the public. I want to be very, very clear that it's more than just having the roads cleared. It's more than just making sure the buses can drive on the roads. For many of our families, walking to school is the only option that they have. And when making the call, you have to consider that. So I just want to put that out there publicly and kind of make sure the public was aware of that variable that affects the decision of a snow day. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have board member responses? And we'll start over on this side. Ms. Timmons?
Well, thank you for canceling school that second day. I actually had some kids that live on their walkers from West Hollis. They have to go to Nashua South, and the snow plows poured on, they plowed the snow up against the sidewalk where they could not see around the curbs. They even go across the street to get on the other side of West Hollis Street to go to school in the first place. So thank you very much. That was a good call. And it is about the kids' safety, and they wouldn't have been safe. And another factor, it is very cold. And to walk all the way from West Hollis Street to South, Nashua South, I pick them up. So
Yes.
They wouldn't have to do it as a walker. So that was a good call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to also make my comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mosier.
I think that Dr. Mosley was absolutely correct in his decision to use the snow days. However, it's a very, very difficult call when the weather can change up here in a matter of an hour and go from a snow flurry to a full-blown storm. And, of course, the most important thing is the safety of our kids. And my kids went to Maine Dunstable, and that was very convenient for us because the bus stopped right at the end of our driveway. So that part was very well and good, and we were very fortunate. But the other part that we have to think about is that, like he said, this is the early part of January, and the odds being that we will have maybe another snow day or 2 or 3. We don't know. We're not prognosticators on the weather. But we also have to keep in mind that we should have a discussion sometime among the board members and the superintendent as to the possibility of the makeup days in the event that we do have to have more snow days. And that is not the easiest thing in the world. We went around and around on that once before. Mm-hmm. And it was very difficult. So that's another thing that we have to be aware of when we are doing snow days.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. I actually was one of those parents who questioned the decision to cancel school on Friday. My children couldn't go to school on Friday because while we live on the bus route on the way to Birch Hill, there were power lines down all over our street, and our street was shut down. Nonetheless, my husband and I were like, come on, But I understand having walkers myself, my children walk. I did not want to walk them to school that day, and I appreciate that we have to look at all of our kids. One thing I'd just like to note about snow days is going into the summer is a concern, I think, for many families. Another concern that I have about some of our students is their access to heat and food at home. A lot of our kids come to school for heat and food and clothing and support. Many of our elementary schools are providing tons of resources for families, and I think if we are going to have school canceled, especially where we take a weekend from 2 days to 4 days, just some thought process into how is this going to affect those children when they're not getting their weekend food bags and they're, potentially going without for several days.
Thank you. Mr. Guarino? I'll just go around. If you have any comments to the superintendent's comments?
I thought it was a good call as far as the snow days, definitely. And when the snow does melt, and because we do have a lot of walkers, there's a program called Safe Routes to School, and I think that might be something that we could have the principals look into. And what that does, it relies on volunteers, maybe PTOs, that they have like walking school buses, so kids walk together, and it keeps them safe. And to err on the side of caution, I think was the right thing to do. And so I think there's some other things we can do, because our responsibility doesn't end at the property, and I think that's that's great, I think. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Mosley. Thank you.
Ms. Van Farver, do you have anything?
Sure. It was a wise call. On Friday, it was 5 degrees when I got up. I had no heat, and it was pretty chilly. And walking any distance in 10-degree or 5-degree weather can freeze you like crazy. So I commend you for what you did. You made the right choice. The Thursday was an easy one, but the Friday was an important one, too.
Thank you. Mr. Kaufman?
Thanks. I appreciate Ms. Raymond's comments about, we know of that 68-hour food program where they really, and when she speaks to food bags, I think that's what you're talking about. So this is a program where kids, families in need, they go over to the United Way and they can pick up food for a weekend. So when we don't have that Friday for them out of their normal routine, I think is what Ms. Raymond is referring to, and I appreciate you calling attention to that. Dr. Mosley, no matter what you did, how did you say it? It's never an easy decision. The one thing about your comments tonight that I would like to drill down into is your comment about us officially being in budget season. And I would just ask, as you start preparing the spreadsheets, that you also begin to include some narratives about the various departments to explain the mission of those various departments, enrollments, trends, and things. I've sent something out previously. I've tried 6 times to get that as a policy where we can have a more informed budget decision. So since you've really jump-started it, sure, I would ask that that be part of it, because creating the numbers is relatively a straightforward and time and thought-provoking process. The front-end narrative, I think, will make our deliberations at the board more effective, especially because we'll have half our membership to be new. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. O'Hensey?
Thank you. I, too, don't envy the superintendent's role in making the decision for the calling of snow cancellation days. And I can also sympathize with the parents that, if they see their child can get there, so everybody has to have a little patience and make this thing work. I was wondering, the former board had asked on the registration forms if we would have a checkbox for whether or not they had internet at home, if that was something that was compiled by a central office, and if certain schools have sufficient internet connection at home, that maybe they could do the blizzard bags. I don't know how that works out for the district snow days, but you might be able to help some parts of our community move forward. And somehow we've got to figure out how to get the others connected. It's a tough call, and I know you can't send out some buses and count partial schools, but I just wish that we could figure out where we do have the internet connection, and if there are areas that we can continue during snow holidays, that those students could continue to move forward, whether or not we count it as a school day. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Gill?
I was going to comment on the blizzard bags because, like, from a student perspective, I take advanced placement classes. I know that their exams are in May and they're set in stone. The College Board has the set in stone dates, and so when these snow days occur, they're not going to move those exams back. So you have one less day to prepare for those exams. So I know that for some people, such as high school students that take advanced placement classes, I think blizzard bags might benefit. So.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Sweeney?
So I am one of the walkers that has to walk down West Hollow Street to get to South every day. So I would like to thank you for that snow day on Friday. I would not have wanted to walk through those sidewalks. As Ms. Timmons said, the sidewalks were not the best conditions. They were very icy, especially since I live on top of a hill where it is, no matter what in the winter, is always a slip and slide getting down. So, and I would not have wanted to walk in those sub-zero temperatures. So thank you.
Okay. I would just like to say I have worked with the late Dr. Massey, Mr. Giuliano, and Mr. Conrad, and all three of them have said the toughest decision they make is whether to call school off or not. So I think I know it's a tough decision. I've talked to people in the seat, and I think you made the right decision because it was about safety and our kids. As a board member, I have gotten calls from parents whose students have to walk down Lake Street. We have two schools that are purely walking schools. We have Mount Pleasant and Dr. Crisp, and we have a lot of other schools where students walk, especially in the inner city, because they're within the bus limits of where they can get the bus or not. And those banks can be pretty high when you look at elementary school kids. And with the roads as slippery as they were, it wouldn't take much for a car to slide into a child. So I appreciate the safety. I know it's a tough decision. I hear what parents are saying, but we don't have the option to just look at certain students. We have to look at all the students. So thank you, Dr. Mosley. And I did want to say, I talked to a bus driver the day it was so cold and some of the buses they were a little bit late picking up students.
I think that was Tuesday when we got back. Was it Tuesday?
It might have been
There was a delay.
Tuesday. And the bus drivers, I said, were you really there at 4:30? The bus drivers were at the bus terminal at 4:30, starting their buses. And this bus driver said, my bus was one of the ones I started out and it just stopped. It just wouldn't go anymore. She said it was awful. So our transportation department did try to make sure that the buses were ready. They ran into a problem that they hadn't run into before. So everybody was trying to do the right thing. So thank you. Committee on the budget. We don't have, everybody will be on the budget committee, but we don't have any report whatsoever. We haven't done it, other than to say the budget will be handled by the city a little bit differently. The aldermen will get a copy of the budget, and they will have some numbers in there for us. They will not be solid numbers, but because there are so many new aldermen who are unfamiliar with the budget, they will be given a number, a percentage of what they foresee an increase for the different departments and work from there. So that will be a little bit different this year. So just wanted everybody to know that. Committee on Finance and Operations, do we have anybody from that committee here? No, okay. Committee on Policy. Who's the chair of that? You are, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. We have met on December 19th, and we have 4 recommendations for approval. The first one is Policy JBAA-R, which lists all the teachers, all the superintendents, all the principals, so you know who to call in case you want to make a sexual discrimination charge on somebody. It has to be updated every year, and you see in your packet there's a lot of red on here. We've replaced a lot of teachers, principals, and their telephone numbers. So the chair recommends that JBAA-R is approved as amended.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Mosher? To approve the motion to accept the appendix for the sexual harassment and sexual violence as amended?
Yeah, I'm looking at this
JBAA-R.
JRA.
JBAA-R. It's an appendix page.
Yes, okay.
It's the procedure, Mr.
Okay, the wrong
Mosher.
page, yeah. Yes, I approve it.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyer?
Yep.
Mr. Guarino? Yes. Motion passes.
Motion approved unanimously.
Okay, the next policy was an ancient one that needed to be updated, Policy 3440 on cumulative records. It has now been proposed to be Policy JRA, maintaining the disclosure and disposable student cumulative records. This is a completely rewrite, and lots of things that had to be added to it. So the chair recommends the approval of JRA as amended.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I have one.
Oh, second.
On page 8.
Oh, we need a second. I'm sorry, Mr. Mosher. Would you like to second it?
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to bring up something for discussion on page 8 of JRA.
Page 8.
Page 8.
It's
And
only...
1, 2, 3,
No.
4, paragraph 5.
Oh.
Okay.
It says that for any valid reason such as working hours, distance between record location sites, or health, a parent, guardian, or eligible student cannot personally inspect and review a student's education records. The principal may arrange for the parent's guardian or eligible student to obtain copies. I don't believe that giving them copies of records is appropriate. They should be able to come in and sit down and examine the records, but not to obtain copies, because if those copies get into the wrong hands, then the record of the student or student may be put into jeopardy of some sort.
Anybody have comments on that? Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. My understanding is that this is the parent or the student themselves requesting a copy of their own record?
Correct?
Correct, okay. So for me, it seems to me that a student or a parent would have the right to their own record. or the record of their child.
Well, I think that you're probably right about that, but I don't like the idea of them obtaining copies because the copies may fall into the wrong hands. I would like to change that word from obtain to observe, or some other word that where they can scrutinize the copies of the records.
Ms. Fitzpatrick might have something to...
Once the copies have left the property, then it's it's like the internet. Once you press that send button, and there is nothing private.
Okay, Ms. Timmons, and then I'll go over there.
I agree that a parent should have copies of any of their children's records, regardless. It's up to them to safeguard that, those records. It's not up to us to say that they cannot have copies of their own children's records. That's my opinion.
Ms. O'Hensy?
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Raymond and Ms. Timmons, but I think Mr. Mosier doesn't fully understand. This paragraph provides for cases where the parent or the student that's no longer a minor cannot reach or get to the records facility and observe them there, so they're sending a copy to them. I think this is a matter of convenience, or to overcome the inconvenience. I think he has to understand that many parents just would observe them, that's fine. They do have the right to have a copy, but I think he misses the point for which that paragraph was included.
Yes, I agree that they have the right to see the copies of the thing, which is described in a later paragraph. But to remove the copies from the premises of the school or the administration offices, I don't think that should be allowed.
Okay. Would administration like to weigh in on this as to
Ms. Fitzpatrick.
what? Okay.
I just want to say that the originals cannot leave the school district, so the school district maintains the original files. But parents, if they request a copy, have a legal right to a copy of their students' records. And as Mrs. Hohensee said, this provision is specifically for parents who are unable to come to the facility, and there's a variety of reasons why that might be the case. But generally speaking, parents come into the building, they sign off that they're looking at the records, and we keep a record of who's looked at the records and when they've looked at them. And so if a parent requested a copy, it would be requested in writing, and they would sign off saying that we had given them a copy of their student records, and at that point, it's the parent responsibility. It's no longer the school district's responsibility for those copies. We maintain responsibility for the original records.
So then the parents would be responsible to FERPA if the copies got lost or into the wrong hands.
FERPA doesn't really apply in that situation.
Did you hear that, Mr. Mosier?
Yes, I heard it, but I don't agree with it.
Okay. Ms. Van Twyver?
I'd like to inquire how the copies are sent to the person who cannot come to the facility to see them. Do you send it return receipt requested, or through the mail? I mean, how do you know that the person that should have them actually receives them?
In this situation, it would have to be a return receipt to make sure that the parent is the person receiving the records.
Okay, just so long as everybody understands that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Mosier, are you set?
Yeah, I am set. I will take it, but like I said, I don't agree with it.
Okay.
But I'm always concerned about, the records. So if they take the parents or the guardians take them home, and they get mishandled, and something unforeseen happens, is the school responsible or the parents are responsible? I think that the parents have to accept the responsibility for that once it's done, and they should be told that should the records become public documents, they would be under the auspices of FERPA.
Okay.
You know, there should be some kind of result of the mishandling of these things. If I've been in a supervisory and superintendent position before, and I know when things are supposed to be personal and private, and who can access it, and sometimes I've had to make copies of documents, but I never allowed them to leave the premises except under extenuating circumstances, and that is covered in the later paragraph.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. On page 10 of 12, at the very bottom of the page, number 5, under the section Disclosure of Student Records and Student Information, number 5, I'll just read it so people know what we're talking about. Organizations conducting certain studies for or on behalf of the school district. Student records or student information will only be provided pursuant to this paragraph if the study is for the purpose of developing, validating, or administering predictive tests, administrating student aid programs, or improving instructions. My concern here...
Excuse me, point of information. Would you please repeat what page and verse you're on? You said 5. 10?
Page 10 of... Wait a second.
Page 10 of 12,
Yeah, right here.
bottom paragraph.
Number 5.
There's no, you mean under disclosure of student records and student information?
Yes, that's what I said.
Item number 5, all right, thank you.
So that particular statement concerns me. There's several aspects to this. Part of it has to do with the kind of testing that's used here, predictive tests. They may in fact be non-academic tests. For example, the survey that we saw earlier tonight, how would that's an anonymous test, right? So that assessment or whatever. My concern here is organizations come to the school district and they say, we want to give your students a test. They charge us to administer the test to their students. I have a problem where I don't like being I don't like our kids being laboratory rats for a test or anything else. I'm concerned that these organizations may profit off our student data, and we still have to pay to administer the test and receive the data in return. I would like some kind of, and I don't even have language because I need clarification on this. I just struggle with the notion that we're giving these unknown entities, organizations conducting certain studies on or behalf of the school district. I'd like to require superintendent review and approval before something along those lines would occur. I don't believe that's in this policy currently. I would just like to have some adult supervision, if you understand where I'm headed on this. I see Dr. Mosley, he's leaning forward. So.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
I would just like to say that if in the beginning it says the district may disclose student records, so it's not a requirement of the district to give anything to anyone. So I think that's very important to understand. I'm sorry, Ms.
No, that's good. Dr. Mosley?
As a compromise, if I can paraphrase what Mr. Kaufman is saying, is that, number 9, it would say, or at the discretion of the superintendent or his or her designee. Is that fair enough? I'm just kind of putting it out there.
Yeah, that type of language, I think it does require a little bit of extra focus, which is really what I would like to say. Thank you.
I also want to speak to the financial pieces. We don't typically pay outside organizations to administer surveys. It's actually, it's a logistical planning nightmare sometimes for our kids and for our administrators, because you have to take time out of the day to actually administer the survey. So the question is, what period or time do you take it out of to administer the survey? That's why we're not, we try to be very selective in the surveys that we administer, because that time on learning is so valuable for our kids.
Mr. Kaufman, would you like to make a motion on that for number 9 to add to?
Well, I think it's a continuation of number 5. Is it- Or you're suggesting just add it as a number 9 provision?
Yeah, I see it as number 5.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Can you help me with that text again, or did you have something?
I just wanted to add, these are all different conditions, 8 different conditions upon which you can give out information. So you might want to put your superintendent approval in the header, so it applies to all, instead of a 9th one, which is disjointed.
That's
So if I can offer, Ms. Oden, so move to modify the sentence that begins with disclosure of student records. I would add to that sentence, under the following conditions and subject to superintendent review and approval.
Would you state that once more, please?
Sure. So on the sentence that, move to amend the sentence that begins disclosure of student records and student information with the following text at the end, and subject to superintendent review and approval.
I'd just like to, a question, point of information on that. Number 8 is health and safety emergencies. To me, this is, for example, the police or DCYF calling a school and asking for information about a student's family in order to protect them. And I would hate to see that language result in the individual school saying, no, I'm sorry, we have to call the superintendent before we can give you that student's address, for example.
That's a good point.
Just to point a couple things. I guess I'll just say that it's never happened before. We've had a couple kids go missing, and certainly it's never been an issue. I think the intent of the added language is to, the intent, well, how it's interpreted, 2 different things, is to allow some type of safeguard around outside organization using student data, essentially, for publication as well as confidential information. So I understand that point of view. I think the challenge is when you have policies coming to the board, if you don't like the way that the policy is currently written, we might want to consider maybe sending it back to the policy committee rather than trying to wordsmith this all night, because we'll be here I would like and hope, we talked a little bit about governance, but I would hope that, nothing's going to come good at 10 o'clock tonight. Right. And we're already at 9:10, we're wordsmithing this a little bit. I don't disagree with all the points here, but if it's this much dialogue and consideration, maybe it's an idea for the board to consider sending it back to policy. We revise it based on the feedback we get, and we bring it again to the board.
Okay. Mr. Kaufman?
Move to withdraw my modification to this policy and return it to committee for future additional consideration.
Second.
Okay. Roll call on the motion to send policy JRA back to committee for further clarification.
Yes.
Mr. Mosher.
Yes.
Mr. Mosher.
Yes.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyer?
Yes.
Mr. Greeno, yes. So the motion passes.
Passes unanimously. Okay, thank you.
Wait,
I-
I have some more, Dottie.
Okay.
Excuse me. Because policy 3340 and 3440.1 are rolled up into JRA, we need to rescind these two policies. So I move to rescind policy 3340, 3440.1.
Point of order.
Ms. O'Hensy?
If these are the policies that we are going on until we pass JRA, perhaps we should delay rescinding them until we approve JRA?
Sure. I withdraw that.
Okay,
That concludes
you.
my report.
thank you. Committee on Curriculum and Evaluation. Is anybody here from that committee? Okay. Committee on Human Resources. I don't believe they had a meeting. That we had a meeting. Okay.
No.
Well, that will have to come up under business if we
Okay.
have an HR
Okay.
meeting. Unfinished, liaison reports. Anybody have a liaison report? Okay, unfinished business, board governance, committee team building, late February, Board of Ed meeting, presentations from potential consultants.
So this is something that came up probably at the beginning of September, and I know there were current board members, there was some disagreement around it. I broached the subject in September, leading into October, but since the elections, what they were, I don't think it was appropriate for us to continue that discussion, given that we were going to have 3 new board members. So I don't want to get into the logistical pieces tonight. What is in your packet is some information that was covered and discussed at previous board meetings. I think that having some type of governance structure that could benefit all of us, and I don't have any particular organization or anything like that, might be helpful to the board moving forward. At a later meeting, I put down late February. That's an estimation of when that discussion could have. I'd like to get the feedback from the board in terms of their consideration of joining or being part of some type of association. Here in New Hampshire, we have New Hampshire School Board Association that has many rich resources for school board members to access around policy, financing, and governance, and facilitations, and roles and responsibilities. And I'm just using that as an example. There are other organizations out there that can assist us. But I think with the new board, I certainly would like to get that feedback, and I'd like to get that feedback at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Comment?
Yes?
Mrs. Oden? Yes, I can appreciate Dr. Mosley's concern about governance for the board, but I think when we were discussing these things in September, we were a board that had been together for 2 years and in some ways struggled through a lot of different things, but still managed to do our job that the taxpayer required us to do. I personally find it offensive to suggest that our new board members who've been on the job for 2 hours and 16 minutes to somehow need outside guidance before they haven't even been appointed or attended a committee meeting. I think there's enough knowledge in the district through the policies, through the materials that are provided. Quite frankly, civility at a meeting is really where I think our previous board fell flat on its face. And based upon what I've experienced here tonight, I think we can get along just fine and listen to each other. I'd be the first one to say, and I said this in my remarks when I was nominated for president, I'll be the first one in 6 months to say that we need outside help when we need outside help. But right now, after 2 hours of working together, I'm looking forward to working together. I wouldn't necessarily have said that about my previous board. But I think it's completely premature, and I hope our new board members share that opinion that you deserve a chance to prove why you're here, rather than be preempted by some outside organization who can easily charge $20,000, which we don't have in the budget for this year. So I would even be wondering where that money is going to come from. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Guarino?
I think I would be in favor of joining some kind of school board association. In my other life, I'm involved in city planning, and most cities and towns belong to the municipal association, and these types of organizations are a really good resource to the community. So at the recommendation of Dr. Mosley, whatever he feels is best at the New Hampshire School Board Association, whatever one that his team thinks would help them, I would be in favor of something like that. So,
Anybody else want to comment on that?
Yes, me.
Mr. Mosier and then Ms. Hohensee. Mr.
You know,
Mosier?
In the past, we have had very good results by belonging to the municipal organizations like the School Board Association, because when new policies are being evolved, that they are very helpful in showing us what the policies are, and we are free to adapt what we need, or what they suggest is good policy. Some policies are required by law, and they help us along that way too. So not every organization is the best in the world, but I think that the New Hampshire School Boards Association has done us very, very well in the past. And over my past 12 years, I can say many, many times when we sat down with whether it was Tom Bourne or
Barrett Christie? Christina
Barry, and some of the other people that have come down. And when we were looking for help in advertising for the new superintendent before Conrad, they were very helpful at that and showing us ways to go and giving us some advice on the costing. So I think it's a good idea to, be in touch with these things and not thinking that we have to bring them in as consultants and spend buckets of money for our new members. Our new members will pick up very quickly, I'm sure, because it takes a good 3 months before you really get into the swing of things, and 6 months before you really begin to understand things. And we've had people on the board from India. We've had people from Britain, from London, and where sometimes we had to explain what the all the abbreviations were. But he was a very smart man and helped us along in many, many ways. So just take your time, listen carefully, and we'll do fine.
Thank you, Mr. Mosley. Ms. O'Hensey?
Thank you. I think the other consideration is we do have that empty seat. So whereas we have 3 new members, in short order, we're going to have 4. So that might be something in terms of timing that we wait in order to utilize something like this if the board decides that we need to. Also, Manchester recently posted online their orientation process using the New Hampshire School Board Association. So that resource is available to us if board members want to review what was taught to the new board members up there. They can do that at their discretion. I'd be happy to share that link with you. But we also have to remember that for the past 2 years, there were board members, including Madam President, you voted against becoming a member of the New Hampshire School Board Association. So, I mean, there are some reasons why we would or we wouldn't, that we would have to discuss at some point before we would make that decision. But I think the resources out there. I think you're absorbing so much all of a sudden, it's very easy to overwhelm or feel overwhelmed. But maybe we can use some of the tools we have to bridge the gap until we all get here and we all know what we want to do as a board.
Thank you. I will say, yes, I did vote against it, but with as many new board members as we have, we will have 4 new board members in maybe a couple of months, and I think it is something that we need to look at carefully because I think it's a good resource. I went to a couple of workshops up there, and one I found a lot more helpful than the other, but you do get some good legal advice from the lawyer, and that could be helpful to the 4 new board members. Ms. Timmons?
Yes, we are new, but believe we very 3 very intelligent humans, and we are not overwhelmed yet. You have to throw more at us for us to be overwhelmed.
You see the budget.
Well, right now, it's a disclaimer, I am not overwhelmed.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. New business. We have some personnel recommendations. Our next scheduled meeting is at the end of January, and administration has asked us to pass these personnel recommendations, and because the next meeting is so late in the month, we have some business to do with personnel recommendations that I think we do not have to delay, even though it is not following what we usually do. There's usually more time, and we have an HR committee, but in the summer, we don't have an HR committee. We only do a special board meeting. So I would like us to suspend the rules in order to approve these personnel recommendations. And if there are any questions about any of these, most of them are coaches, but if there are any questions, we can go into non-public session.
So moved.
Thank you. Roll call.
Can I ask a question?
I'm sorry, Ms. O'Hensy?
Second.
Well, she made the motion, you
Oh,
seconded.
Well, am I moving or am I seconding?
You just moved to go.
Right.
You just moved to go to non-public session. Did I hear
No,
a
I
second?
didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, you didn't.
No, I moved to go into, to suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules, I'm sorry.
I'll second it.
Okay, so, Mr. Kaufman.
Mr.
Okay,
Weinstein.
Ms. O'Hensy?
I just wanted to make sure we have a revised edition because number 13 was incomplete. The information wasn't available at the time it was sent to us. So I just want to make sure that.
Thank you. Ms. O'Gara?
The nomination on number 13 for the liaison, is the same thing as a head teacher in the teacher contract. We don't usually put the amount next to the head teacher. It's an amount that's in the contract, $1,500 or $1,800, depending upon the number of teachers being supervised or guided, any of those responsibilities. So it was left off because we always leave it off.
Okay, now Tara told me that she was trying to decide or figure out how many that they were overseeing to set the stipend, but that's fine.
I set the amount when we tell the city, and then we attach it to their pay once you nominate the person.
Thank you.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. I know I have what's in my packet, and I know there was an email saying it was revised. So I don't know if, as to Ms. Hohensy's point, if
She was just talking about.
if this is, we know it's in the packet is not completely up to date. So is there a copy for distribution now of what is actually revised?
I know of no revision to this.
I know a revision was sent out.
I don't have it, and I didn't change anything on here.
So, if I may, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I have, it was sent out on the 8th. There are 13 things listed on it. I guess if you want to wait for me to compare the two. But then I'm very confused why something would have been sent out as an update when in fact it was not necessary. And it compounds the problem because I know Mr. Mosier doesn't have, he's told us before, he doesn't have access to electronic, receiving things electronically. He's dependent on the hard copy packet.
Can I just ask, might that revision have been the $1,500 to $1,800 you were speaking about, that somebody thought it was going to be put on
It's not
this?
mentioned in there, Mrs. Oden. If you'd like, I can show it to you.
No, but I.
There's no dollar value attached to number 13.
You have a, do
I
you
have
have
the
a
electronic
revised?
here.
Do you have a revised copy?
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't,
Does not,
But it came over as an update. So hence the confusion.
Miss,
Oh,
Miss,
good.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Raymond.
I picked up the update today. It is identical. My understanding from Tara was that she was not able to send them out to the new people on Friday because we weren't sworn in until yesterday. And so the update was simply to provide it to the three of us who didn't have it before. The one that I got in the email today and the one that I personally picked up today are identical to the one that was in the packet.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, but I would then point out that, in my opinion, you folks have not been adequately, the new folks have not been adequately noticed. You're entitled to 3 days to receive these materials before you vote on them. So I just want to point that out. But I guess if we're suspending the rules for one part of it, we should suspend the rules for the whole thing.
Miss Raymond.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion to waive that rule for this evening. I have reviewed this in its entirety, so I can't speak for Mrs. Timmons or Mr. Guarino, but for me, I'm prepared to move forward.
I'll second it.
Well, I think we did already we did suspend the rules.
we
for that
didn't
reason.
vote.
Thank you.
Yep.
We didn't.
Didn't take a roll call.
We need
we take
a
a
roll
roll?
call.
To suspend the rules. Okay. This vote is to suspend the rules. Mr. Mosher?
You know, before you can vote on anything, you have to come out of non-public.
We're not in
We
non-public,
didn't go
sir.
into non-public. That was my
Thought I heard
confusion.
Well, all right.
Yep.
Yes,
Is that a yes, sir?
that is correct.
Okay. Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyre?
Yes?
Mr. Guarino? Yes. So the rule's been suspended.
Okay, Madam Chair, can I just make one observation? No revision went out today. New board members got it, they got it today. I mean, so just point of clarification, that's coming from Tara.
Ms. Van Twyver.
I move the adoption of the recommendations on HR.
Second.
Ms. O'Henson.
Ms. O'Henson.
Okay. And the motion is to accept the personnel recommendations of January 8th, 2018.
Roll call, Mr. Mosher?
Yes,
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyre?
Yes?
Mr. Guarino? Yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay. Grant awards from the Nashua Education Foundation. I think we have a list of those.
Just real quick, this is in your packet. There was, I mentioned one today, the Nashua Education Foundation granted a total of $12,883.85 total for grants in the Nashua Public Schools. I want to thank them for doing that. It was Window to the World nonfiction at Amherst Street, benchmarking at Middle School at Elm Street, reading intervention at Bicentennial, Titan Garden at Nashua High School North, and STEAM and STEM projects at New Cyril. So I thank the Nashua Education Foundation for their donation. I'm asking the board to take a vote to accept the grants from the Nashua Education Foundation.
Move to accept the grants from the National Education Foundation in the fall of 2017.
Second.
By Mr. Kaufman. We'll have a roll call to accept the grants from the National Education Foundation.
Mr. Mosher?
Yes.
Ms. Oden?
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
Yes.
Ms. Timmons?
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee?
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyre?
Yes.
Mr. Guarino, yes. The motion carries.
Okay. And then we have the inclement weather procedures.
I already spoke to that earlier, so we're all set.
Okay. Thank you. Public comments.
New business?
I'm sorry.
I would
New
like-
business.
I would like to ask that some discussion about E-Block gets sent to curriculum. I understand that E-Block was eliminated for the remainder of the semester in both high schools, and I would just like a little discussion about that, so I don't want to take the board's time up here, but I just want to know how it's working, what's going on, what the impetus was.
Okay. Student, Ms. Sweeney?
So for the remaining of the semester, next week on Tuesday, it's not like E-Block is being eliminated. It's more like certain classes are having extra time. So on Tuesday, for E-Block, we will go to our first block class. And it's kind of not like exactly, they won't be teaching the teachers, but it's more like just for extra help. On Wednesday, it'll be our second block class. On Thursday, it'll be our third block. And then on Friday, it'll be our fourth block. So there's no elimination. It's just for extra help for finals that are coming up.
Can I
Thank-
just?
I'm
Thank you.
confused.
I think, and this is thank you. I think that was a nice explanation. Anytime a parent has that type of question, it should not go to curriculum and evaluation. It should go to the principal, and the principal can communicate exactly what's going on. I don't know the source of where this is the first I've heard of it, and certainly if E-Block was going to be eliminated, you would receive more communication than just from what is being presented here. So I ask the board to really let the principals do their job, and I don't know where that communication is coming from, Mrs. O'Hensey, but I'd like it to go back to the building principal, whether it's at the south or the north, and they can certainly communicate exactly what Haley beautifully articulated. Please.
Thank you. Just
Ms.
clarification.
O'Hensey?
And I thank you for your explanation. I didn't know that we were supposed to contact the principals as the board. I mean, I thought we were supposed to contact you as the superintendent. My explanation that I got was till the end of the semester, they were eliminating it and adding 10 minutes to a class, so it completely differs from what she's doing. So I don't really care where I get the explanation, but I was just trying to understand what was going on. It was temporarily eliminated, not permanently. I understood that much, but the rest of it I'm pretty much confused on.
So just a point of clarification, and I don't want to get into it too much because,
I don't either
again,
tonight.
I just want to say, how about we talk offline? But if any parent has a concern about something around an E-Block being eliminated, science being eliminated in any of the high schools or middle schools or anything like that, it is not a board matter initially. That conversation needs to happen at the school level. And then if it's not resolved, then it gets moved to me. So I don't know where you got your information from. And if it's from a parent or anything like that, I would encourage that individual to have that dialogue with the principal, please.
Thank you. It was both a parent and a teacher. And for me, to get clarification, am I supposed to go to the board, to the principal, or am I supposed to go to central office, just for clarification?
For you, the parent and the teacher that brought that to your attention, please encourage them to go directly to the building principal. If you have further follow-up, I'd be more than happy, or Donna, in this case, Donna Fitzpatrick would be more than happy to bring clarity to that as a result of a concern. In terms of where I'm going with this, and I don't want to take too much time, I think we want to kind of turn that leaf in a way that let's use a curriculum and evaluation committee for what it's for, and not necessarily about a misunderstanding that's going on or a communication issue that's going on within the building, because in this case, a parent or a teacher was not clear about the expectation about E-Block. So I would prefer it to be handled in that way. So my reaction would be, please send the teacher. The teacher should be able to walk right into the principal's office. I don't know what high school it is. And the parent to contact the principal, either interim principal Nate Burns or Principal Keith Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Gill, but is that, you're at North, right? Is that the same thing
Yeah, the
that's
same
happening?
thing's supposed to happen, but it's just, like she said, temporary, just in preparation for finals or midterms, whichever class you have, since the semester's ending.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a smart move to me from what I hear about the finals and E-Block. So thank you for clarifying that. We appreciate that. Okay. Public, no business, okay.
Thank you. I have a couple of things. The first one, I just wanted to follow up on something that occurred in the orientation session we had a couple of weeks ago. So I would like to move to change the public meeting time, start times, to 6:30 p.m. for all our board meetings.
Second for conversation?
I just have a question. What is the purpose of doing that? And that, we have 2 public meeting sessions, so would that be the first one you're talking about?
So to answer the question, for the committee meetings that we have, for our board meetings that we have, for the budget meetings we will have, the intent is to give someone like yourself, who actually works for a living and has to commute in and out of Boston, additional time to get here. I know Ms. Raymond expressed this concern at our orientation, and I just didn't want it to slip past us before we establish committees when they're going to meet and schedules and stuff. So it's for your benefit more than mine, actually, but I think it helps the public that we're always at the same time, which we are not. Some are at 5:30, some are at 6:30, some are at 7.
I have a point of clarification. Were you talking about the committee meetings or committee meetings and the Board of Education meetings?
Everything. All the committee meetings, board meetings, budget meetings, whatever meeting we have that's public, they should, my proposal is to make that at 6:30.
Does anybody want to comment on that? Ms. Raymond?
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. I did bring up in the orientation, for me, I'm a full-time parent. That's my job. My husband works in Massachusetts. Takes him an hour to get home. 5:30, he would have to leave because of traffic, his work at 4 those days, which is doable for our family, but it would be certainly easier for my participation in the committees if they could be, say, an hour later at 6:30. And I know we had discussed, maybe for the committees that I'm on, maybe just to have this as a roundtable discussion moving forward. It's not my intention to inconvenience anybody else, but to also fully participate in the board without having to pay a babysitter for the volunteer work that I'm doing, or drag my children to meetings that they would rather not attend.
Thank you. Mr. Guarino?
I think it's a good idea, Mr. Kaufman, to move them back. I just wanted to make sure I have the motion correct when what you're exactly that you want to do. So.
Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you. This is what the board has done. For the committees that Mr. Hollowell chaired, they all started at 6:30. The Finance Committee was to accommodate, he worked in Mass, and they accommodated that need previously. So I know, Mr. Guarino, I forgot about your husband and his commute, but I did remember the need to get young children settled before you get out of the house. So,
Okay.
So it's common practice at the board. We've done that for a long time.
Thank you. I would support moving committee meetings to 6:30 if that's necessary for the people, the members of that committee, but I cannot support moving board meetings. In fact, you would be moving it up a half hour closer to those people that have to commute, and I think 7 o'clock for people that want to come to a board meeting, and we occasionally we do have people coming for certain topics. I think 7 o'clock should stay as a board meeting time. So I as it is, I can't support this motion.
Can I split the motion to two votes? One for committee time at 6:30 and one for full board? So that way, where you could support one half of it, would it?
Or if you want to withdraw your motion and make two motions, it might be easier for Mr. Guarino, seeing where this is his first night as clerk, and he has done one whopper of a good job.
Madam Chair, can I just make a
Yes,
suggestion? I
Dr.
think it's, and thank you, I know we all have, obligations outside of the current, school board, but I think it's very premature to say that at 6:30, the curriculum evaluation is going to start, because we don't know who's on this committee. So I would just make the recommendation again, and I would encourage the board to think about not so much start time, but duration of the meetings. It's 9:45. This is not the time to get into this. They have to get home. People still have responsibilities. So I would just make a recommendation to the board, at the discretion of the committee, establish a start time based on what the chair would have, based on the chair of the committee and the consensus of the committee. It might be that Ms. Van Twyver, Ms. Simmons and Ms. Odom are part of the curriculum evaluation, and they can do the meeting at 5:30. That works for that committee. Maybe I'm just making this up, for the Human Resource Committee and Mr. Guarino and, et al., maybe works for 6:30. So I think to make this decision right now, I think it's a little bit premature, because we don't really know who's on the committee. And in terms of stability and starting, just for tonight, until we can really figure out who's on the committee, the traditional school board should remain at 7 p.m., please.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Dr. Matsumoto.
Thank you. Ms. Van Twyver.
I would also like to remind the board that our administration and those people who attend committee meetings from the school also have lives, and they have already been working so many hours during the day. So I applaud Dr. Mosley's suggestion that we leave it up to the chair, because these people put in a lot of hours, and for them to come an hour later than what what we did before, makes it later for them to go, to get home at night too. So, and they have to be up the next morning. So I hope you keep that in mind.
Okay.
Call the vote, please.
Can you reread the motion?
The motion is to change the start time of all meetings to 6:30. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Committees and the board meeting, yes.
And the Board of Education meeting and all the subcommittee meetings to begin at 6:30. That is the motion on the floor. Okay. Mr. Mosher?
No.
Ms. Oden?
No.
Mr. Kaufman?
Yes.
Ms. Raymond?
No.
Ms. Timmons?
No.
Ms. Hohensee?
No.
Ms. Van Twyler?
No.
Mr. Guarino, no. The motion doesn't carry.
7-1.
7-1.
Okay. Motion failed. Public comments.
I have another under new business, Mrs. Oden.
I'm sorry. Adam. Is Mr. Marcoux? I'm sorry. Mr. Kaufman said he had another.
Yes.
Is it fairly quick?
Depends how much you want to discuss it.
Well, I'll tell you, it's
No,
quarter-
it can be very quick. It's a
it's quarter
conversation I've
10.
already had with Dr. Mosley, and it's something that I think we absolutely need at the board. and I alluded to it in my opening remarks tonight when I was seeking the office. So I move to establish a process to document and track board requests to the administration.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Could you repeat that again, please?
Sure. Move to establish a process to document and track board requests to the administration.
Second.
Anybody?
I do
May
have,
may I speak to it?
Yes, yes.
okay.
Okay, thank you. So, for the last 2 years that I've been on the board, there was an attempt to do something like that. It was a spreadsheet. When I discussed this with Dr. Mosley, he shared with me a copy of the spreadsheet. There were about a half a dozen things on it. Several of those things were not completed, and we only saw that spreadsheet maybe 2 or 3 times. If we're going to use a process, we need to use it. I know that we go to meetings, we go to committee meetings, we come here, we make requests to the administration. To the best of my knowledge, there's no central list of what's been requested. There's no status reports. I'll have that for you next week. The requests are made, for example, a perfect one Ms. Hohensie alluded to tonight was the survey. We had requested back in June that there be a survey conducted concerning student availability of internet at home. We asked about that in June. It was supposed to have been done in September when the students, they weren't going to do a survey, but they were going to put a question on one of the intake forms to capture that information. To the best of my knowledge, that hasn't been done. So that request that was made and actually voted upon, I believe, by the board, was never fulfilled, but there's no status around it. There's a lot more. So you're going to request something, but you may not know who's going to be working on it. This is intended for accountability. It's accounted for transparency. It's accountability to the sense of knowing where our requests are in the process, who's going to fulfill them, and when we can have an expected date of response. Thank you.
Just before you speak, could I clarify for that? You spoke to June, you asking for that. Can I remind you that Dr. Mosley was not the superintendent at that time, and Dr. Mosley did not receive a transition plan, so that could be part of it. I think he's been very responsive at this point, but I think it would be good to
The
have
motion
something
by the board,
like
though,
that.
so it would be in the record, and, you know,
Dr.
I mean,
Mosley?
This
I'm
gets
sorry.
into what I call governance, because Willie will respond and do anything you want in terms of a request. But if you make a human resource request to Garth McKinney, it's not going to go to Garth. It's going to go to the Human Resource Committee. It's going to go to the curriculum evaluation. So this speaks to how is this board going to handle these requests. We try to prioritize as much as we can and understand that these requests are coming under the umbrella when we are running a district of 11,000 students, over 500 employees, and times that by 2, about 22,000 parents who are also making requests of us as well. So this is a situation where I did share with Mr. Coffin that it was a document that was shared with the board probably like a year or so. There are many requests, and who is working on what request is up for discussion. In terms of governance and how the board wants to proceed, and given the timing of this discussion, my recommendation would be if you have requests, go to the chair and to the secretary. And that request can be prioritized and talked about where is that going to be resolved. If you have a question about this was a perfect example, curriculum evaluation and this request about the E-block, you're not going to hear a response from the curriculum evaluation committee. It's not appropriate. That request and that information will be pushed back to the building at the building level. So this gets back to governance. This gets back to understanding where these requests are generated from. And also, too, we get so many requests for a budget analysis and human resource that there is a complete backlog of requests coming out of policy. And these requests are starting to be significantly damage this district in a way where there are policies that need to be significantly revised because it's been dated, but these requests are coming in fast and furious where the real work isn't getting done. So not too much time here. Let's continue the discussion about governance. Let's continue about discussion around how we want to facilitate that. And as a board, those requests should first start with the chair, and subsequently that dialogue can occur.
So,
Madam President?
Ms. Van Fiver?
I agree with you, Dr. Mosley. I think all the requests should go through the president of the Board of Education.
Sorry, I just said, I don't know what I said. Did I say the board
It's not
chair?
what, I'm sorry.
I missaid. I said board chair. I'm sorry. I should have said president.
Well, that's quite all right.
Doesn't matter.
Hey, she's still in charge. That the president, all requests for information should come through the board president and then to the superintendent to dispense and have responses, and maybe the clerk could maintain that record. I agree with that.
Mr. Kaufman?
that would be satisfactory to me. Thank you very much. Can we somehow formalize that?
Can I just clarify? That's what we do on budget, and that was a new procedure, I think, 2 years ago, that all, Mr. Hollowell was chair of that, and all requests for information on the budget went through Mr. Hollowell, and everybody could see what was being asked by whom, so there wasn't redundant questions about things. So I think that worked very well for budget, and it should work very well for the board. So thank you.
So we just send them to you, and the clerk will keep a running list, and we'll get status back at board meetings?
Yep.
Okay.
Would you like to remove your motion on?
Sure, but I'd like to submit a second motion to cover what to kind of memorialize what we agreed upon. So, yes.
Well, I think it's already in process. Wouldn't the
No, it's
request
not.
Go through the?
No, it's
go through
not.
the-
It does not
go through the
exist.
President.
No, it does not exist.
We didn't make a motion for that. What
May
you
I
mentioned.
make a, sorry.
I was going to say, it will be in the minutes. I think we all have, it's almost consensus from what I saw people around here, that will work for everybody. So I would think that we could do it. If you want a motion, we could do it. But I think there's consensus around this horseshoe that would be a good way to address the issue. But if you want a motion, you can make a motion.
Thank you. I'm willing to withdraw my previous motion, and did you second it? You have to.
Yeah, I'll withdraw it. Fine.
Thank you. So, and move to establish a process whereby where information requests are forwarded to the board president, recorded by the clerk, and resolved by the administration, and we will have updates at board meetings.
Clarification.
We need a second.
I just,
Oh, second.
clarification. The clarification pieces, your issue may be, an issue may be brought to the board, but it might be referred back to policy for further discussion or something like that. So you're not going to get, in some requests, and I don't know the requests that are coming, there might not be resolution at the board level because it's been referred back to the proper, I would say, chain of command or with a proper committee.
I don't have a problem with that at all. In fact, we've done that in the past where it was a policy that dealt with HR. We wanted to go there first. So if that's the kind of thing you're speaking to, I completely agree.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. O'Hensi?
I'd just like to say something. I understand the intent, and I would like some kind of mechanism, to keep track of who has internet and all these requests and so that the board gets the follow-up, and it's not the administration's fault for not understanding, but we're keep changing administration, so everybody's in a bit of flux. And maybe with our board packets, we just get a status report. These are the requests. This is, whatever the status is, that's irrelevant. I just don't want to approve a motion that requires the board to go through this process when getting all information. It's sort of like a lock kind of things. I mean, there's many times that we seek information in other ways. That's my only concern. I don't want to this might be one good method, but I don't want this to be the only method in which board members get information. Do you understand my concern?
No.
I'm not clear.
Mr. Guarino?
I would imagine that the process is already in place. We have a president of the board, we have new business. If someone requests information, it's already recorded. We have minutes that are recorded. And then we also have the superintendent who reports every meeting, so that can be brought up. So it seems to me it's kind of a redundant, you're looking for something that's redundant. We have a process that's already in place to do all of this. I don't know how other people on the board feel, but I just don't. I just have I'm a little bit hesitant to create some kind of new bureaucracy. And the superintendent has already told us that, they have a lot of requests. It's not just, they have parents. There's already a lot of requests going on. So I'm reluctant, and I'm not actually 100% sure on what the motion is and how the process in this motion is supposed to work.
I got a good idea.
Okay, Mr. Mosher?
Let's all make out our request forms and send them in to Mr. And let him read them over and answer them, and let him take care of the bookwork. Because this sounds like just another cockamamie make-work project to do this.
Thank you.
When very possible that it can be simplified and have one of the board members there who is pushing for this, hand it to him. Let him do it, and keep the record. He can research the minutes and everything else, and then submit the list and see who's done what and how.
Thank you. Mr. Kaufman, and it's almost 10 o'clock, so we
I just need to clarify. Mr. Mosher, you've insulted me twice tonight, and I don't think I've deserved either of them. First thing. Secondly,
Excuse me.
Secondly,
I'm sorry, Mr. Mosley, Mr. Kaufman
Mosher.
has the floor.
Mosher. You said Mosley. It was Mosher.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mosher, Mr. Kaufman has the floor.
Mr. Guarino, we don't have a formal process for what I asked for. And I can tell you, if you saw the spreadsheet and the date of the items on that spreadsheet that Dr. Mosley showed me, they're from 2 years ago. And that spreadsheet, which was intended to provide this purpose, has not been used in that amount of time. I can tell you quite specifically that I have made requests. I've had responses publicly from administrators who are actually in this room right now, who promised deliverables by the end of May of this year. And here we are 7 months later, and those publicly committed deliverables still have not been delivered. So I beg to differ, sir. I know you just entered the board, but we do not have a process. We do not have a continuous way to record these things or to report status back. They come from all of us. Each of us is going to make a request of the administration somewhere along the line. It's also a way to avoid duplicate requests, because people may have curiosity around the same information. We need a central way. I sent an email to Dr. Mosley suggesting that the IT people develop an application that we could use the web to do it, where we could enter our request, and it's all kept there, person who submitted it, the dates, the status, who's doing it, so it doesn't have to even involve the clerk. But that request is one of the requests that's sitting out there. So, but it's not recorded anywhere, is my point. So I think I appreciate the fact you think that we got to have ourselves well organized in this regard, but the fact is we do not.
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Dr. Mosley?
I please ask the board to table this matter. We're not gonna come to anything productive right now. I will draft something for the next board meeting, but in terms of governance and peace, we're not going to find any resolution tonight at now at 10:05.
Ms. Van Twyver,
I move to table.
Seconded.
I second. You second.
second? Okay, and-
Ms. Timmons seconded.
okay. It's non-debatable.
Do you want to take the vote?
I'm sorry. On the vote to table the motion, Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Ms. Oden,
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman,
Yes.
Ms. Raymond,
Yes.
Ms. Timmons,
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee,
Yes?
Ms. Van Twyler,
Yes.
Mr. Guarino, yes. The motion is tabled. And Mr. Kaufman, I would appreciate maybe a clarification on the motion afterwards, after the meeting. So I just want to make sure I get it straight for you. Okay? Yep.
Thank you. I apologize to Mr. Marcoux. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry you had to wait.
I'm used to it. Adam Marcoux, 4 Jalori Lane. I'm president of the Nashua Teachers Union. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Charlotte on leave, and I have children in the school district. I welcome the new members. Welcome back to our returning members. Is it a different day, the same song? Is that what they say? On the JRA, one of the concerns I had about the superintendent being involved in all 8 of those decisions was number 2, other schools in which a student is transferring and enrolling. So if a kid goes from Amherst Street to Charlotte, does the superintendent need to approve that student's records being transferred from one school to the other? I'm just going to say no, I don't think so, but that's just my perspective. So maybe the word designee can be put in, or we group these differently, that some of them have to have the superintendent's stamp of approval and the others are up to the LEA in the building. As we enter a new board year and a new calendar year, 2 of our contracts that I represent expire, food service and secretaries, and we look forward to beginning to negotiate those with you. As the superintendent mentioned, January 16th, we will meet, hopefully for the last time, for a teacher's contract. I shared publicly in December, and I'll just reiterate this, that on your January 29th meeting, I have scheduled a meeting with the general membership of Unit A. My hope is to go to that meeting for ratification and come with those results. Either way, I'm having the meeting. We started negotiating last year. My patience is running out, frankly. So I look forward to a successful and productive meeting on the 16th with the superintendent, the director of HR, Mr. Clausen, and whomever may be appointed to that team from the board. We are so close. We are so close. And I'm hopeful that we can come to an agreement. I really was hoping that the board meetings could start at like 3. That would be really helpful to my schedule, but you know, I can't have everything, so thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Board member comments? We'll start over here with Ms. O'Hensey.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. I just want to point out that part of the problem that we're here till 10 o'clock is we have 2 meetings in a row. Maybe we shouldn't double up our meetings. If we want them to be 2 hours, we should do single meetings per night.
Mr. Kaufman?
No, nothing to say, thanks.
Ms. Van Twyver?
Yes, I want to thank Dr. Mosley for putting in that information about how you come to decision on the weather. That's the first time I've ever seen any proof that, you know, any tool that a superintendent uses to decide whether to close school or not. That was good. Thank you. I appreciated that.
Thank you.
Mr. Guarino?
I just want to thank the board members for making me clerk, voting for me, and looking forward to working with all the members of the board. So hopefully we can have some, we'll get some good work done. Thanks.
Ms. Raymond?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Timmons?
No comments.
Okay. I did have a couple comments, but it's much too late to address those. But I do want to thank Mr. Guarino to step up here tonight on his very first night to be clerk, which is probably the most difficult job on the Board of Education. I want to thank Ms. Van Twyver for sitting there and helping him out. That's teamwork. That's what this is about, and I think we all appreciate that. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor? Oh, roll call. Mr. Mosley, Mr. Mosher.
Mr. Mosher, on the motion to adjourn, Mr. Mosher.
Yes.
Ms. Oden.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Ms. Raymond.
Yes.
Simmons.
Yes.
Ms. Hohensee.
Yes.
Ms. Van Twyler. Mr. Guarino, yes.
We are now adjourned.
The meeting is
It is-
adjourned at 9 minutes past 10.
Yep.